All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for showing up in such incredible numbers for our candidate forum for the candidates for mayor in the city of Mankato and for city council. My name is Patrick Baker, and I serve as the vice president for Greater Mankato Growth, which is our regional chamber of commerce and economic development organization. I'm also joined tonight by Annette Weston, who is the news director for KTOE News with Radio Mankato, who will be co-moderating the forum with me this evening. So I also want to thank Minnesota State University Mankato for hosting us here and providing a great space and grabbing extra chairs when we needed them, and to KTV for live recording this event, and I want to welcome our live viewers online this evening on KTV. Before we get into the debate or the forum, I want to set out a few expectations for our audience so we can have a civil and engaging dialogue this evening. We have more questions than we have time for, so we ask that you help us make the most of our time by holding your applause until the end of the forum, and that there be no shouting or heckling, particularly of the moderator. Everyone else is totally fine. The format for this evening is as follows. Each candidate will be allowed to make 2-minute opening remarks, and then following those opening remarks, we will proceed to Q&A. Candidates will be allowed about 1 minute or so to respond to questions, and any follow-up questions or discussion will be at the discretion of the moderators. Questions this evening may come from one of two sources. First would be questions that were prepared and generated from the moderators, and the second are written questions from the audience that are also selected by us, but were provided by you this evening out front. Obviously, we have many candidates here this evening, so we ask that all of our candidates be succinct so we can get as many questions in as possible in the time we have this evening. So now it's my pleasure to introduce the candidates that are here with us this evening, and we'll go right down the row here. Running in the primary to serve as the next mayor of the city of Mankato are Najwa Massad, Bukata Hayes, Burg, and Toby Leonard. Running in the primary to serve in the Mankato City Council are Ward 1, Karen Foreman, Ward 3, Mark Frost, Fardousa Jama, and Erin Oakland. And Ward 5 are Jessica Hatanpa, Tyler Meihak-True, and Taryn Surdy. So let's thank them all for being here this evening. And thank you all for stepping forward to volunteer for public service. It's just a great testament to the strength of our community and diversity of our community that there are so many of you here this evening willing to put your name forward. So with that, let's begin with opening statements, and these will be 2 minutes each. And we'll just start with Najwa and go right down the line. You can stand, you can sit. If you're going to stand, I would just recommend making sure to pull that microphone close to you. We'll have to do a little bit of sharing with those mics tonight.
I had been. Can you hear me? First of all, Patrick, I was going to thank you for letting me talk, but not being the first one. Anyway, good evening, everybody. You cannot hear me?
Just hold it real close.
Can you hear me now? All right. Thank you. First of all, my name is Najwa Massad, and I'm from Mankato. And I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Lebanon, and we immigrated here to the United States in 1960. And so I grew up in Mankato, went to St. John's School and Good Counsel Academy. And then I met my husband, John, and we got married, and I have 2 wonderful daughters, Marie and Carla. And the love of my life is sitting back over there, little John, not big John, by the way. Let's make that clear. People sometimes, when I'm talking, they'll say to me, why are you running for mayor? And to me, the answer was so simple. I love Mankato. I love this community. I grew up here, and I raised my children here, and God blessed us with 4 businesses. We worked very, very hard to achieve the American dream. And because of this community and the people that are sitting here, we were allowed to achieve that. So when I say I look through the lenses, I do. I look through the lenses of being an immigrant that came here to the United States And I was fortunate to bring my children here and raise them to give them a better life. And this community is the community that helped me through all the things in my life, whether it's raising my children, being able to go outside and play in a safe community, to be able to educate them, whether K through 12, post-secondary. We have some of the best schools that around. We have 6 or colleges, or whatever you want to call them, post-secondary. So we have all those opportunities. And the opportunity to be able to build a business, and our business, I'm very fortunate that we are able to connect with a lot of people. We see a lot of people every day. We become involved in their life, and they become involved in ours. When we were adopting little John from Lebanon, I say we because it was a community. This community was a family. It wasn't a community like a town and people you don't know. So I got closer. I was leaving church, I was holding little John, and someone saw me and they said, you know, my prayers were answered. She didn't say that John and Najwa's prayers were answered. She said it was hers. And in that moment, I thought, my God, look at this community, this Mankato. So that's why I want to give back as much as I can. I served on the planning and zoning for 18 years. I served on the multimodal for 5 years. And I'm very, very proud to say that I was the first woman chair of the finance committee of my church. And right now I'm also the trustee. So I can juggle a lot of things. As a woman, of course we can, sorry guys. But as a woman, we can juggle many, many things. And so I want to give back, and I'm saying that with all my heart because I truly, truly love this town.
So, the most important thing about me is that I'm the son of dear Damani Courtney and Karen Hayes. I'm the husband to Lisa. I'm the father to Damani, Jalen, Xavier, Zuri. That's my connections, my family, right? That's what makes me want to run for mayor of Mankato. I believe that social and economic access, inclusion, and vitality can happen for all of us through connection, through being connected to one another, through valuing those relationships, right? I believe that the experience that I've had, originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, so probably shouldn't say it in this room, but I grew up a Packer fan. I've been here for about 20 years, so I won't say if I still am. But first came to Mankato in 1994 to attend Bethany Lutheran College. Came from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, came to a community that since 1994 has invested a lot in me, both as an individual and then also within my family. For me, running for mayor is an opportunity to give Mankato a return on that investment. As we continue to grow, as we continue to change, the leadership needed to continue to move us forward and take advantage and capitalize on all those opportunities we have economically, but most importantly, to continue to have us be one community as we move forward is critical. And so for me, right now, I'm the executive director of the Greater Mankato Diversity Council, been the executive director for 13 years, have been advocating for us to see and treat each other as equals for a very long time. We do a lot of work with young folks. We do a lot of work with adults. And so 13 to 14,000 folks in this community every single year hear a message of respect for all, regardless of differences. How do we all come together? How do we all make our community one community for all of us? For me, being mayor would, if you will, mean fostering community connectedness between all of us. If you look around this room, this is our community. All these folks that you see around this room are invested in our community. How do we connect us all? How do we bring us all to the table to move us forward? For me, it also means that there's economic opportunities. We're seeing growth, right? How do we capitalize on those economic opportunities while at the same time keeping our core of who we are intact to move forward? How do we do that responsibly, too? I think about, when I say responsibly, I think about a neighborhood, the Rosa Parks neighborhood, which is growing. How do we allow Rosa Parks neighborhood to mature, to be one of those neighborhoods that we talk about in this community that everybody wants to be in, like a Lincoln Park or West Mankato? We can have those sorts of neighborhoods across our entire community if we use economic growth responsibly, right, so that all of us move forward. And then the last thing is I'll champion and promote investment across our lifespan. We have a community that invests in young people invest in our older active adults, invest in young entrepreneurs. I'll continue to promote and champion those investments so that we continue our community on this trajectory, right, of becoming an even better place. And one thing I know about Mankatoans is we constantly want to improve. I will continually try and help us move forward to improve and to become and kind of co-create the community that we all want.
Take this one. I'll take both. Okay. Hi, guys. My name is Burg, and for those of you who don't know me, yes, that's really my name. I decided to run for mayor, at the end of the day because I care about the success of the people in the community, and I care about the Mankato community. I grew up in Lake Crystal, and my family owned a business on Riverfront for over 20 years, so I was like a little fly on the wall growing up in Mankato. Not a lot of people knew that was me, but I was right smack in the middle of downtown. I'm married, and I have 3 children who were born in Mankato, and my oldest son, is actually going to college in Mankato for architect design coming up here. My other kiddos are also in the Mankato School District, so I'm very familiar with our education system. I'm also a student at MSU, and I'm finishing up 3 majors right now, so kind of a non-traditional student there, but I think lifelong learning is incredibly important. And a lot of the areas of focus that I have in my final year are actually on areas of political science and administration. So I was hoping that I could be able to apply that to what I would be doing as mayor and with the council. The areas I have particular interest in relate a lot to affordable housing and safe housing for members in the community, and also talent retention and acquisition, which relates to jobs placement and also advocating for small businesses, and then also revitalization of the spaces that we currently have already existing in Mankato and making sure that we're getting good use out of those spaces and using our tax dollars for that. I believe that I have a solid background in leadership and business management. I've been in organizational management and leadership for over 20 years, and I can bring that to the table, and I always have a solid background in community reinvestment as well. So as a community member and citizen, I've given back a lot to help underserved populations, help with affordable housing transition, and then also helping with hunger and homelessness, excuse me. I'm not as good as these guys. So I think that when decisions are made in a small group that has an impact on many, one of the things that I stand out with is I'm not afraid to be the unpopular opinion in the room. I'm not afraid to push back a little bit and make sure that all of the voices that are at the table are heard, especially those that may not be represented at the table. So that is one of the things that I will make sure as mayor that I always bring to the table. And also I wanted to recognize that it does take courage to lead, and I just wanted to thank everybody that's up here. I think that everybody's doing an amazing job. I didn't realize how much courage it took until right now. But it really does. We have some amazing candidates here, and I really look forward to seeing what's happening, and thank you guys so much for coming.
Hello, I'm welcome to this, and also thank you for attending. Actually, this is a huge turnout. I saw a much smaller crowd last week when we were here for the county commissioners. But I'm Toby Leonard. I'm running for mayor. I actually moved to Mankato about 25 years ago when I left the Army. I was originally from Minneapolis, and I fell in love with your town. I actually bought my house about 22 years ago, and I've lived in the same house here in downtown Mankato for those last 22 years. Raised my daughters here. They go to the District 77 schools, and just kind of fell in love with Mankato because you have a beautiful community here, and also your regional center. Mankato is kind of an oasis here in the middle of southern Minnesota. We have entertainment, we have food, we have restaurants, we have actually a mixed economic base, agriculture, service base, entertainment, and industry. So we have quite a bit of things going for it. When other areas kind of drop down and their growth kind of stalls, ours actually continues to grow. So Mankato's got a lot of things going for it. So I thought, I really do like it here. And since I did go to school here and I do like it here, it's great. Now, people ask, why am I running for mayor? And the answer is actually very simple. I'm boring. I am really boring. I'm the guy who sits there, pulls out the numbers, and takes a look at it. My background is science. My undergrad's microbiology with minors in chemistry and physics. My graduate degree's in biology. So I also have a graduate in experiential education. But I tend to be the person who sits down and looks at everything. I actually compare the numbers and I try to see what is going to do the best for the most people. How do we maintain the city? How do we make it so that we can keep our same charm that made me fall in love with the place first? I mean, we have some beautiful neighborhoods. Lincoln neighborhood has wonderful old homes. I love walking through there on the sidewalks and just take a look at what's growing. And then, of course, we've got a booming downtown. We've got buildings being built by Tailwind. We have Brennan trying to build a few other buildings. We've got a lot going on. So how do we keep this going, and how do we do this in a clear, coherent, comprehensive, and integrated strategy? Now, of course, the city council and current mayor have actually set up some processes to ensure that decisions are made in a clear, coherent channel, such as any spending requests have to be submitted a meeting ahead of time, and then the city gives an analysis of where the money would go to and how they would get the money. So that's kind of my whole idea is as a longtime member of the community, I can actually help out by being the boring person. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Foreman, and I currently represent Ward 1 on the Mankato City Council. Ward 1 is on the Hilltop area. It goes roughly from Madison to Stadium and roughly from the hospital to County Road 12. So it's a big area. It's growing. I've been on council for 8 years. And one of the things I am is I'm a very pragmatic person. And I'm always looking for how do we compromise to get there. The situations that we run into on the city council can be sometimes very broad-based, as Mr. Leonard referred to, but sometimes they're very simple. Like the city came and put a porta potty in the park that's right in front of me, and none of my other neighbors have to look at this porta potty. And they're all okay with it, but I don't like looking at this porta potty. So that's the nature of some of the things that you deal with on city council. The other thing that I think that I've really advocated for in the past 8 years is for public hearings. If you can come to me with a petition and some signatures on it, and you want to hold a public hearing, I think it's your right as citizens to come before the council and to be heard on that issue. I'm very proud of the way we handle that. It's a very open process. Everybody has so many minutes. And we've held that on the gay, lesbian, transgender issue. We held that on the indigenous peoples issue. And we held it on tobacco 21. And generally after all those things, we all voted on it too. But we do a very open process. If you've got something to say about the issue, come and say it to us. Send us an email, call us on the phone, text us. I've also been very proud of one of my things I guess I volunteered for was Highway 14. And this last year we were able to get the funding with the help of Senator Friends, thank you very much, and many hundreds of other people to complete 12 miles. So we'll actually be able to go from Nicollet to Rochester in about 18 months, hopefully. And we're looking forward to being able to stay in there and finally get that to New Ulm. So I've appreciated my time. I appreciate your being here, and I'm going to turn this over to my colleague.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. My name is Mark Frost. I've been on City Council for 16 years at the end of this year. Grew up in Mankato. Went to school at MSU. I'm the father of 3 sons. I ended up graduating from the University of Wyoming Pharmacy School. Went to Boise, Idaho. And all these mountain states are beautiful, but guess what? We came back here because we love Mankato. And it's been a very good decision on the part of our family, my wife, and everything else connected to what goes on in our lives. Just want to say over the last 16 years, the number of accomplishments we've had in the city. Number one being the growth and the economic strength. When you see signs up all over the place, help wanted. That is driving up wages to some extent. And it's also something that, we get people moving here because they want to have a job. They want to be able to make a living. We've got affordable housing going up, Rosa Parks you were talking about. The new apartment complex across from that is going to be an affordable housing complex, okay? There's a number of other things that we've accomplished. We've gotten 3 bond upgrades from the major bonding companies. That saves you tax dollars. That's your money that you get to save because we got about the best AA rating that you can possibly get by being, a little judicious with our spending and making sure that when we spend money, it's being spent correctly and nothing being wasted. Okay, it's an amazing process when you go through it, but after 16 years, it's been unbelievable. The number of things we put into place that have worked out well in this city as far as quality of life. Number one being, as far as I'm concerned, community policing. We've got police going into every community trying to make contact with the individuals in the community. They are not just driving around in a car and then going home. We expect them to make sure they're talking to people, and that is a huge part of what they call quality of life. You talk about quality of life, and that's why a lot of the communities around us are not doing so well right now in rural Minnesota, losing population. Blue Earth just had their Walmart close. That cost them 100 jobs. But we're actually expanding based on a number of different issues. We've had Mayo make a huge investment here. Mankato Clinics made a huge investment. And it's been unbelievably successful for the city to have all these people coming in making investments, plus the downtown investments. You've seen the buildings. We're now going to have another building going up down there, the Ide Bailey building. Those all bring talented people that want to stay in this community and live here. And that I'm very proud of those accomplishments over the 16 years that I've been there. Plus, we've kept our taxes in line. So we've done a good job. But thank you.
Hello. Thank you for you guys for coming out, and thank you for having me here. My name is Fardousa Jama. I'm a longtime resident and a graduate from East High School, all the way. I came to Mankato in 1995 in the 6th grade. This has been my home. This is where I grew up. This is where a lot of my values and integrity has been installed in me. I moved away to Richmond to get my college degree from the University of Virginia. And moved back. And when I moved back, for me, there's been a lot of changes that I've seen, especially from 1995 to now. For me, has been through the lenses of different lenses in our community and different voices that are not being heard within our community, right? And so a lot of people are like, "Why are you running for Fardousa? Why do you think now is the time for you to run?" I feel like I have a lot that I can bring to the table. I bring to the table my volunteerism. I'm not a politician, so that's not one thing you have to worry about. For me, it's more about the policies that impact the long-term residents that live in our ward, millennials that live in our wards. Yes, there's a lot of job opportunities here in Mankato, but we're losing valuable talent that live in our community, that could stay in our community. And I want to bring that voice to the table as a millennial, as an immigrant. Bring that voice of being reason to why we should be accepted here, right? I'm not alone in this, and I know that. I am a positive and a community builder. I'm a uniter, and that's what I bring to Mankato, and that's what I want to bring to the city of Mankato. Thank you.
All right, my name is Erin Oakland, and I've been here in Mankato for 5 years. Is where I bought my first house at age 24. Felt pretty proud of myself as a new homeowner. Before that, I grew up in Brownsdale, town of 700. If you go north or south on Highway 56, and if you blink, you'd probably miss it. There I was, after attending school at Alexandria Technical College for my law enforcement degree, and then actually coming here for MSU, I moved with my parents, which is sometimes a college student's nightmare. But I moved to my parents in Brownsdale, where I grew up, and that's where small town integrity and just volunteer and hard work got instilled in me. And I volunteered at my church. I volunteered with the Austin Police Department. I volunteered everywhere. So that's kind of where I got my my urge to volunteer and run for office. And I was actually part of the Brownsdale Fire Department for a couple of years, where I was a first responder and firefighter. And then I was also on the city council. And unfortunately, I was only on there for 6 months because I got a promotion here in Mankato, where it moved me and my family. And I've been here ever since. And I got to say, ever since I've been here and growing up in a small town of 700 and moving here, wow. This town instills that, it's such a large town, but it still instills that small town feeling. So I was amazed when I moved in, and the sense of community and welcomeness and everything like that, I was just wow. And I'm like, you know what, I want to put my roots here. So that's when I bought my house, and been here ever since. So right now, I am full-time at Target as a security manager, and then I'm also full-time as security at Mayo. So I got a lot of things on my plate, and this is one of the things that I think I can add on to my plate. And having a little bit of experience in community leadership, I think I can bring to the table a lot of leadership, producing results, and just a lot of problem solving. And I got to say, with Mark Frost and some of the council members, I mean, they've done an amazing job. One, with a budget, and just two, all around. I think they're a great group of people, but in my mind, I think there's still work to do. The main reason why I started to run was because of the homeless rate. The homeless rate has jumped 40% here in Mankato in 2017. Now, there has been some mix where, okay, no, we're just getting better counts. But who cares? I mean, we're still seeing a huge increase in homelessness. So I've been talking to some shelters around here in Mankato, seeing what they need, what they need from our community, what would they need from the council, just kind of getting into, what I would need if I was to be on council, what they would need to help with this homeless rate. So I've been talking to them, and then also the budget. I got to say too, the council has done an awesome job with the budget, but there are some things that I would love to turn the fat on, and hopefully we can speak on that tonight. But that's why I'm running, homelessness in the budget, and I got to volunteer, so that's why I'm running here. So, awesome, thank you.
My name is Jessica Tampa. I grew up in North Mankato. I graduated from Mankato West High School, and back when it was Mankato State University, I got my degree in marketing and business administration. I started my first job with the Chamber of Commerce. Back then, that's what it was called. Then on to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and then I've started my 13-year career in insurance, where I get to work with my husband every day. I have 3 small children, 2, 5, and 6, and 2 step adults now. They're 18 and 20. I spend my free time volunteering. I've spent the last few years on the Childcare board, which gives money that we raise back to the school district to fund projects that otherwise they couldn't afford. The last 3 years on the Junior Achievement Board, raising money, and I get to teach 3rd grade fiscal responsibility. The last 6 years, I have worked with the Children's Museum on fundraising and the events committee, helping them be able to raise money to move from Cherry Street to their new location and provide new exhibits, along with multiple other committees through the United Way. I coached volleyball at Mankato West for 8 years. I decided to run for city council because I feel that I finally have enough life and professional experience to make me a good candidate. I own a business with my husband, so I spend my day helping people, working with a budget, marketing. We've grown from 4 employees to 12, and with that comes exciting growth, but challenges. Working with all of the different nonprofits, you learn to work with a group of diverse individuals who all have the same ideas of what you want to achieve, but maybe different ways to get there, but you have to do it in a timely and responsible fashion. I decided to buy my first house in Mankato, not North Mankato, in 2006. And when you pay taxes, you definitely feel a responsibility. You want people spending your money appropriately. You want them prioritizing for you. But most important is, as a mother, I care more than anything about education, opportunities, facilities, and safety for the kids of our community. And I hope that I can gain the trust and confidence of everyone in this room to know that I would be a great candidate, and I promise to do a good job for Ward 5.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tyler Meihak-True. Just want to start by saying it's truly an honor to be up here tonight. A little nervous, so maybe bear with me. Regardless of who wins or loses, I think all of us will do a great job. Where to begin? I'm a graduate of Mankato West. I could have left town after that. I decided to stay here. I went to MSU. I got my degree in urban and regional planning. I was fortunate enough to study abroad. I studied urban planning in South Africa, Ghana, and that. After graduation, again, I could have left, but since I love this town so much, I decided to stay here and kind of dedicate myself to making my community more awesome than it already is, I guess. Let's sorry, drawing blanks. Help me out, Krista. That's my girlfriend, Krista Bunny, back there. What was I going to say next? Let's see. Okay, so I'm a realtor. I'm a realtor at True Real Estate, and I'm running for office because of the same reason that everybody else is running for office, and the same reason why you're all here. And that's because I love Mankato, and I believe in this city, and I'd like us to reach our full potential. I think we're on the cusp of greatness. We have a choice to make, and we have questions to ask ourselves about which direction we want to go as a community. What else? Let's see. I think it's important that we have conversations about innovation, entrepreneurship. Solar energy is a big one. I think we can be a regional leader for the entire region, really. We have to ask ourselves, is that a role that we should undertake? And I don't think we should shrink from that responsibility. I'd like to welcome that responsibility. Geez, I had this whole speech all planned out. And now I'm up here. I guess if I could leave you with anything, it would be that more than anything, I think this town needs collaboration more than competition or corruption. And I think with these people up here, all of us, I think we will give you that collaboration. Competition is good, but collaboration is much better. And I think that is how we're going to predicate our success as we move forward into the end of the decade and into the 2020s. And I think that's all I got. All right, thanks, everybody.
Well, I'm nervous now too, so bear with me. I'm Taryn Surdy. I live down in the Park Lane area of West Mankato. I grew up in Good Thunder. I moved out to Good Thunder in 1996, and then as soon as I graduated high school in Maple River, I came to Mankato State, and then I went to SEC, and I'm also attending Argosy University in the cities for marriage and family therapy. The reason why I wanted to run was because I felt like I could give a newer voice to the council. I could also focus a lot on our green spaces. I'm all about sustainability and preserving our green spaces like Sibley Park, like Land of Memories. I also want to expand and make sure that our expansion is sustainable and that we're not expanding beyond our means. I also would like to make sure that we're retaining our college students and making sure we're having jobs for them. Because a lot of them are moving up to the Twin Cities. I had about 10 of my friends who graduated here from Minnesota State move to the cities because we don't have jobs that can keep them here. Whew. Sorry. But yeah, I just really wanted to kind of push a younger voice, kind of get my voice out there. My job's all about caring about people and kind of putting their values before myself. So I'm not a politician. I'm not here to promote what I want to do. I want to make sure I'm promoting what the community wants to do as a whole. So, yeah.
All right, we're going to start the questions at this end and move that way forward for the answers. So how long, a minute or two?
Minute.
1 minute. 1 minute. So the first question for you guys tonight is, what do you think is the most significant challenge facing the city? And then how would you address it? We can start with you.
For me, as Najwa, I think our biggest challenge here in Mankato right now is retaining talent. As you heard before, you see a lot of signs saying hiring and so forth. And as business owner, we have to do, and as a community, there has to be a balance. We need to retain that talent, yet at the same time, we have to have the businesses for that talent to stay. If we can retain those talent, we have better educators, we have better infrastructure, we have so many things that we can do more. But if we don't have that talent and we don't have that business, this community won't grow. So I want to see how we can retain the young people to stay in this community, to help it grow, for them to bring their children up, to educate their children. We also need wages. How can we do better wages? By having better wages, if we have more businesses, more challenges for the businesses, that will retain. We need to retain talent. We cannot let this talent, this wonderful talent that we have, leave. This is how we will grow Mankato. We will make Mankato better. It's just a very simple answer. We need to keep our young people here.
For me, it would be around growth, and it would be around how do we be, and I said it earlier, socially and economically inclusive. So the notion of growth provides us opportunities and challenges, and as we see across our country, economically, we have to know where we want to go and how we want to grow. But it also depends about socially how we are connected, right? So businesses want to come to a community that's vibrant, that's connected, that has resources, that families can come to and stay. Economically, if we talk about growth and we talk about both the social and the economic aspect, I think we find a balance that allows us to kind of move to another, if you will, level, continue to grow, but grow responsibly, make sure all of us are included in that growth. I think if we do that, quality jobs, entrepreneurship, things for our young folks in our community, I think more opportunity for folks to hire, retain talent. I think our universities and our colleges will continue to find spots for their graduates. We lose a lot of graduates of folks who have been in our community for 4 years or more simply because we are not, or we may not have the jobs, but we also, I think, sometimes worry too much about kind of economically these things instead of socially how we see each other. And how does that provide us a firm base to grow more responsibly as a community, businesses, neighborhoods, and all those things that make our life great. So that would be the one thing.
Thank you. I see a great opportunity in the shifting demographics and also the changes in technology that relate to job changes that also lead to a need to collaborate and cooperate on a regional level. I think that we're going to see a lot of our aging population that needs a different type of housing than we possibly currently offer. We have a lot of students that need affordable housing, and we need to continue to make sure that we're offering that locally. And we also have a lot of shifting dynamics and demographics in our families that are coming into the community that may have larger families that need a place that may not be a home that they need to buy, but they need apartments that have larger spaces and more bedrooms. But also we have a change in the way that we do business. And a lot of our rural communities right now have a lot of manufacturing businesses that maybe the people will live in Mankato but drive there or vice versa. So keeping an eye on transportation needs and making sure that we're constantly paying attention to what's going on at a regional level as well as a local level and collaborating with our regional partners and stakeholders in the surrounding communities, I think will be very important.
Okay, just get ready for a nap because they gave the boring guy a microphone again. Actually, what I see as the most pressing challenge is we just spent a few $1 million on our water treatment plants, which are state of the art and they are the best we can get. We actually process water for not only Mankato but the region. And the state is actually looking at tightening restrictions which will put our new water treatment plant out of compliance, which affects not only us but our local area. So, yes, I'm boring. I'm the one guy who sits there and looks at, okay, what are all the details that are going to be the biggest expense in the near future? That is our water treatment. So some of our things we're going to have to look at is how can we arrange our contracts with our local areas that we actually, the other cities, Eagle Lake, others that we do water treatment for, and how can we make sure that we, one, have access to fresh water since our shallow wells are tapped already and we're already down to the deeper wells and we may actually have our permit reduced. And then, of course, our discharge. Oh, yeah, I see Dr. Schwarzkopf is in the middle. He's like, yes! This is what happens when scientists start talking. So, yes, our biggest challenge that I see is water and having availability and be able to treatment and discharge them because that's actually what we base a lot of our economy on. I mentioned that we are an agricultural-based economy. We actually, in the various processing areas around here, process the most soybeans anywhere in the world. We actually are the biggest soybean processor in the world here in Mankato. So we have to make sure we have good quality water to maintain our economic growth.
Well, the number one thing that I'm always concerned about, and that is what people tell me they're concerned about when I door knock, is whether or not you feel safe in this community. I don't care if you're tall or short. I don't care if you have white hair or dark hair. I don't care about the color of your skin or what kind of education you had. If you don't feel safe in this community will not thrive, no matter our water, our jobs, or anything else. So that's my number one concern, is that when you have a fire in your house and you call 911, that an efficient, effective, well-equipped, safe fire department responds to it. That if you call 911 for another reason, that you have a respectful, well-trained, well-equipped public safety officer that responds to that. And that's the number one thing about the community, is that every single one of you in this room and every single person in the community needs to feel safe. It's part of our community policing, part of what we work with that. We don't achieve it all the time, but we certainly work on it, and that's certainly the goal of the city council. The other big issue is, you're correct, it's water. And it's the phosphorus in the water. And it's our permit with Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. The city's currently suing them because we think their standards are not scientifically based. And we want to have a different review of that. But we have partnered with several other cities around the state, several other small cities. There's a small city that, in order to meet their water quality standards, it's going to cost them almost $200 per month per resident of that community. And it's a very, very low income community. They can't afford it. They want the water that goes out cleaner than the water that comes in. And that's the problem we have with the Minnesota. It's more detailed than that, but that's the essence of some of it. So water quality is our other issue. You all take it for granted. You go, you turn the faucet on, and you know that's Mankato clean water coming out of there. Well, there's a lot of work to make that Mankato clean water.
How many of you know what Mankato's motto is? It's leading the way, okay? We want to keep that motto going, and a huge portion of that is quality of life. Quality of life, as far as I'm concerned, is, again, public safety, which Karen just talked about. It's very important. You know, you get into the neighborhoods, you get into the individual items going on in any neighborhood, and basically you're speaking for the whole city when you want to change, like, rental ordinances or something like that. But the fact is, it's quality of life. We need to make sure that that stays in this area. It is here now. Hopefully it's going to stay there forever because of the Visitors Bureau, that type of thing. That is a relatively new department in the Mankato, basically, in GMG, and it's one of them that we serve through our tax dollars to make sure they're here. The water issue that Karen's talking about, that's true. We are suing the MPCA based on they set one standard and now they're trying to administer another standard. Okay? So we're trying to make sure that there is some reality in what they're telling us, but that's going to cost us millions upon millions of dollars. When I was a kid, we used to float the Blue Earth River in a canoe. When you came to Honeymead, it turned completely green because that's exactly where all the soybean stuff went. Not anymore. In the time that I've been on the council, we have taken all that and now it goes through the plant. It's amazing what has happened and what we can make happen. But again, quality of life to me is the biggest issue in Mankato, will always be the biggest issue in Mankato. Community policing, anything we need to do to make sure people have a good life. By community policing, when you think of police, you're thinking of somebody writing a ticket or doing something like that. No, we want people in a group of people talking to them, telling them or asking them, what do you need from us? And that is the important thing about community policing. We need to engage all the citizens to make sure that their concerns are being met, and if there's any problems they need to get taken care of, that is taken care of for them. So, thank you.
For me, it has to be employment and job attainment. It also means that one of the key issues is, if we're going to keep talent in our communities, we need to celebrate them and want them here. And that goes back to back with housing and employment. If there is better housing in the city of Mankato, where we can have workforce ready housing that people can live in and can afford to live in, we will have better job retainment here. Also, millennials and college students that we're losing. We need to come a better way of retaining our college students to stay here. And that means having incentives input in place that celebrates and wants them, especially in big corporations. We can put packages together that enhances their quality of life for them. For example, let's say I work for Angie's Popcorn, and I'm there for about 10 years or 20 years from now, and I get promoted into high management and things like that. Wouldn't it be amazing if it came with a bonus where a family can afford to buy a home and they can have a down payment as an incentive for being an employee with them for 10 years? Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't you still want to continue to raise your kids, live in this community, and be a contributing factor to it? Two, having workforce homes is looking at the developers that come to Mankato that survey our town. Developers that are geared just to rent a room in an apartment for our college students versus having a developer that looks at the growing population that's happening here. For example, if a developer comes in and says, we're gonna gear apartments that is work ready for the workers in Mankato, we can retain them here. We can move them here, they'll be housed here, income and economy goes up here. Ideally, looking at it for me, in order for our college students to stay put, we have to offer better services from our city members. Safety is the key thing, but we need to maintain our college students and not lose great talent from our community to other communities.
All right. Is this thing on? Okay. My biggest thing, and I've said it before, and I said it in the newspaper, is the homeless rate. I just spoke up here saying this is why I'm running. Just to give you guys some numbers, 40%. The homeless rate here in Mankato in 2017 increased by 40%. The county, 15% of its residents are living in homeless conditions. When I say homeless conditions, they're experiencing homelessness issues, and that's a problem. When Mark Frost says we're leading the way, I think we should be leading the way in making sure nobody is facing any homeless issues. And like he said too, we have a help wanted sign on every business. Are we training those? What are the skills do they have so that they can go and get a job, get a house? What are we doing to give them those resources and help them out? It's not just yes, the food and resources, stuff like that is good, but we also got to be making sure that they get resources that, what are their skills? What are they achieve in, and get them to that position that they can feed their family, they can get a house, get a car, stuff like that. So that's the main thing I see as the main issue here in Mankato. And I will also touch on the public safety sector too, with the law enforcement degree and I talk to the Mankato police officers on a daily basis with both my jobs. And, part of the thing with that is, yes, we have a very fine police department. Sometimes, yes, there are some misses, but I think we have one of the better police departments and fire departments in this town than anywhere else with the population that we have. So I just want to say, yes, public safety is important as well. And then Jama just said it too, just making sure that our college students are here to stay. Another member here said that, we're losing our college students. Every time that we have a college student here and they're working for Target and we're talking, I'm going to move up in the cities, better jobs, better pay. So how do we bring them back down here? How do we give them those jobs? And there are jobs. Target just did a remodel. With the retail sector kind of not looking so great, Target's still doing well. I'm not saying like Target's doing well, but other sectors are doing well too. So Mankato is growing, and Mankato is a business town, and I think we just need to maintain that and also take care of the citizens that we have that are not doing so well. So.
I agree with everything that everyone here has said. I think keeping and retaining talent is an important thing through our job, we partnered with MSU about 8 years ago, and we have a consistent stream of interns. They're paid interns. And our goal is to eventually hire them on as full-time people. And I think it all falls under the umbrella of growth. Mankato's a growing community. We know that there's issues with affordable housing, there's issues with homelessness, there's issues with finding and retaining talent. And I think the most important thing is to focus on where do we want to grow, how do we want to grow, who do we want to bring to our community, what kind of businesses to attract the most talented people that we can.
No, I'd say Mankato is obviously a great place to live. For me, hopefully for all of you, we could all agree that the goods outweigh the bads, but that's not to say that there isn't bads. Everything you all just said, I also completely agree with. One thing I'm going to mention that wasn't brought up is childcare. I was recently kind of mulling together a commercial real estate project that fell through, but it's not over yet. It is the empty Rasmussen College building on Victory and Highway 14. I think that would be a great daycare center for the children of this town. When I go out and I talk to a lot of people my age, that's their biggest issue is childcare. A lot of my friends, they're driving to St. Peter, they're driving to Eagle Lake because all the places here are full. The numbers I saw, which don't quote me, I'm assuming they're accurate, was 800 kids in this community are underserved or not served at all when it comes to childcare. We could be killing multiple birds with one stone here by retaining college graduates, by giving them a nursing job or a teaching job or a childcare providing job in a new facility that would keep them here. That would also help a parent enter the workforce. This is a lot of parents. You get what I'm saying. We need more childcare, everybody. It's huge. It's a big problem. So.
Well, that's a big question to say what the number one problem I would say facing Mankato is. But my big thing is just sustainability in general, whether it's financial, whether it's economical, whether it's developmental including the expansion of our community, but also the expansion of education for our kids. I am a big supporter of early childhood education for kids. I think that's very important for people. I also feel that getting early childhood education can lead to our kids being more of a social and community contributor. I feel like they can develop social skills easier. They also get into the homes that maybe of children who are underserved. So getting those kids educated is really important to me.
I want to do sort of a lightning round on an issue that the council took up this year, and that is Tobacco 21. And that's the notion that the council would forbid purchase of tobacco products by those that are under the age of 21 in Mankato. I suspect that issue may come back next year, and so I want to do if you were on the city council and that issue came before you, would you vote yes to ban tobacco products for those under 21? Would you vote no, or do you not know yet? And let's do the quick yes, no, or I don't know on that issue. And we'll start with you, Taryn, and we'll come down.
So I guess my answer would be I am undecided. I am more for whatever my community members would want. I am not here to produce or push my individual ideas. I want to make sure that I'm representing the community. So if Ward 5 residents were like, we are against it or we are for it, I would support them in either way.
So I think Tobacco 21 is a great idea, but it's not a perfect idea by any means. I think we have to be very careful of the negative consequences of our well-intended decisions. I think a compromise here could be needed. Maybe let's say 19. That would keep high school students, they wouldn't be buying tobacco products, but we still wouldn't infringe upon the personal sovereignty of, let's say, a 20-year-old college student who's in the National Guard. I don't think we shouldn't allow them to go buy some chew if they feel like it. I think that's their right as an American. So I say compromise. I say tobacco 19.
I know this is an issue that most people are split on, but if asked today, I would definitely support anything for healthier children, a healthier community. I don't think most people pick up a cigarette at 30 and start smoking. You start smoking when you're younger. Tobacco companies target youth. So if there's something that we can do as a community to say that we're for healthier young people, I would absolutely be for that.
I would be against it, and I've said that before, but I would not be against a statewide tobacco 21. I think when you go local, it's kind of hard to enforce. If a police officer pulls you over, you have a pack of cigarettes. Are they going to be cited for 20 or having a pack of cigarettes? And I think that was kind of one of the problems when they first started introducing this bill in the council, or this city ordinance in the council. And they fixed some of that, but that's just something that you need to think about. Also, when you turn 18, you should be able to do whatever you want. I mean, I'm not saying in legal terms, but you don't buy a car, buy a house. Just because somebody says you can't buy a pack of cigarettes, it's not going to be enforceable. They can go somewhere else and buy those pack of cigarettes. And I'm not too much in, we're going to lose our business. I'm not all about that. I'm just saying, if you're going to enforce it, they're still going to go somewhere else and buy them. So. And I also think that the whole vaping thing, that's actually drawing a lot of people to the tobacco, but you have 16, 15-year-olds that are vaping, and they're calling that almost the gateway to tobacco. So if we're going to enforce something, why not the vaping? So.
Not slow rolling thunder. Lightning.
I'm completely and totally against it for one reason. We are dividing our community and marginalizing people. It is not me as a city. If I was on the city council, I would totally and utterly be against it because I have no right to enforce how somebody chooses to go about their daily lives. It is the responsibility of our parents to educate us in the consequences that we face by picking up a cigarette. So for your answer, no. I would definitely vote no.
Surprise, I would definitely vote yes. As a pharmacist for 40 years, I've seen enough addiction. It drives me nuts sometimes to see how people trying to get off nicotine addiction and they can't. I've heard the idea of it has to happen at the state, Nick has to do it, but the fact of the matter is Mankato passed the ordinance to outlaw indoor smoking. That was my initiative for the most part. And the fact we were told the same thing, wait for the state to do it. No, not a chance. It has to start here. St. Peter just did it. North Mankato will do it if we do it. And as far as I'm concerned, when I see kids smoking at 10, 12 years old, I don't want that to happen. They're getting the majority of those cigarettes from younger people. There is no penalties if a child or some young adult is caught smoking for the young adult. But I guess I support the children or the young men and young women at Mankato East, Mankato West, Loyola, MSU, Bethany, and any of those schools here. I'd rather see them healthy when they turn my age.
Yes, no, or I don't know yet.
Okay, yes.
Okay, lightning round it's a statewide issue. A patchwork system will not be effective, so I would go with no. Let's do it at a statewide system.
I don't know yet.
I would say, yeah, I think it's aligned with all the other efforts we've done around the greatest good, alcohol, renting a car, indoor smoking. So I would vote yes.
I would say yes also because that's how I make my decision. I listen and I hear everybody, what they have to say, because that's very important. But at the end, it's what my heart says. My heart says, yes, I would do that.
All right. That's better on this half of the table. Follow up with a hopefully, still lightning, but not as yes or no answer. One of the most important things that the council does is set an annual budget. How do you sort of personally approach balancing the various needs that we've talked about? We've talked about affordable housing, we've talked about childcare, we've talked about public safety, et cetera. All of those can't be afforded at once. So how do you personally balance the investment decisions that the city needs to make? And are there any particular programs that you would like to increase or particular programs you'd like to see decreased in the budget? And Taryn will start at this end and we'll come back down.
For the budget for the city, I want to focus on making sure we have a budget to support education and also affordable housing for people of low income and also college students and families who are underrepresented in the housing community. I want to make sure that the education, especially for early childhood education, is increased. I think early intervention with children is the most important. That's where you get them, is when they're young, and you can influence and make sure that they are educated and they can be contributors to our community.
So I'm not a genius or a prodigy when it comes to the intricacies of municipal finance, but I do think that what is important is that people's needs are met first. Rather than give you the same old political slogans about a balanced budget, let's just be real and say that people's needs need to be met first. The streets need to be cleaned up. The garbage needs to be picked up. The snow needs to be swept. People need a roof over their heads, that sort of thing. That will come first. As much as I'd like to fantasize about pedestrian bridges, I think that'd be great. But realistically, people's needs need to be met first.
I agree with Tyler. Having the needs of Mankato, the citizens, that does come first. And I think you need to spend within your budget, not for tax increases. I think there's multiple ways to look at a budget. And you really need to prioritize. It's what's important to the residents, not what's important to me or anyone else standing here.
Awesome. And before we really quick, I just want to say, with Pat, the city manager and his team and the council, they've done an amazing job bringing out that budget. You can look at it. There's graphs, there's numbers. It's fun to read, kind of. But it's awesome. They got it down. The transparency is there. So I applaud the council on that, and I applaud Pat, the city manager. But really quick, like I said before, I really want to trim down the fat. We do need to make sure that the needs come first to the people. When I was reading the budget, I saw that we spent $35,000 on HD cameras for the council chambers as far as a switchboard and HD cameras. And yes, they did say that it was an analog system, and I totally agree with that because I grew up in analog with target and surveillance cameras, so I totally get the age of that. But couldn't that go somewhere else? Couldn't we tactically say, okay, maybe we should bring that into our network services or our video services that soon will hopefully have the body cams for the police officers?
I agree with everybody on here. First and foremost, we need to maintain our livable everything that Tyler had just said. I definitely agree. I'm not a finance degree major, but I definitely agree with that. We need to address the things that we need now, and especially pay attention to more housing going up and what kind of housings that we're putting in place that builds more revenue for our families that can live in and things like that. So I'm really honored that Pat and the city councils have done a horrendous job, but I also think that we could do better on our budgeting.
And I agree with the transparency. If any of you look at our budgets, they always show comparisons to last year and what's going ahead right now. It's up to each individual city council person to make sure he's looking at that budget or she's looking at that budget and trying to figure out what they agree with, what they do disagree with. Once you get into that stuff and you looked at it for a while, you will have things that you want to keep going, things that you're going to want to cut back on a little bit. But for the most part, it's worked out pretty well for the city. The city staff seems to listen to what we want and don't want. And it's worked out well from the point of view that we have a great quality of life and a great city to live in.
The budgeting process goes through many, many, many meetings. And there's a lot of data to look at. And I think what the job of the city council is to look at how you balance all of that. How do you balance whether you need a new fire truck with some improvements to Sibley Park? And I think that's what overall the council has tried to do. We've tried to look at balancing in parks, in roads, in public safeties. You try to make sure that we're looking at balancing those areas to keep the city running. We have an excellent bond rating. We have excellent audits. And it's a very complicated process, but we've done a lot to add to the transparency to it. We do a lot of comparisons with other cities our same size to determine, is the staff really being appropriate with what they're asking for.
Actually, I agree with them. The current city council and mayor have done an amazing job with the budget. They've made it transparent. They've actually started doing it anytime they have a spending request. They do an analysis of how it fits into the whole budget. Where does the money have to go? Because every program that they come up with has some merit. They're just trying to figure out how they can finance it and how it fits into everything. So it's a comprehensive look. And they've done amazing work in the last few years because they've done things like the Minnesota local government aid has dropped from 9.3 million a year to 6.4 million a year over the last few years. Now, that sounds pretty boring, but what that means is the biggest share of money into the budget is levies. It comes directly from the taxpayers here in Mankato. It's not the sales tax, it's not local government aid. So when we're looking at this budget and we're comparing competing programs, expenditures, and such on merit, we also have to face the reality that the money paying for this is coming straight from you, the Mankato taxpayer. So when we're looking at this budget, we have to be responsible to you. So we have to look at this and be fiscally conservative. And we have to be responsible. So as we look at this, it's great. And part of it is that there's mechanisms and processes in place to make sure that the budget is done over multiple meetings. And it's not done flippantly or whimsically. It's actually a very carefully planned, detail-oriented budget. So I would like to, as if I were elected mayor, to actually continue that very careful, comprehensive look at the budget to make sure that everybody's needs are met and we can do this in a responsible manner.
I agree with Toby's sentiments on this. I think it's important to recognize that every dollar that's spent by the city comes from somebody's hard work and labor. And in recognizing that, it makes it a little bit easier to be responsible when you're looking at balancing the budget. As a mayor on the council, I would also make sure that I'm looking at all of the facts, making sure that there's transparency, and listen to the voice of the administration. I think they do a good job, and they're the ones that are actually doing the work and running the city behind the scenes, and they're phenomenal. I think it's really important that we pay attention to what they have to say, and that their voice is at the table, and then also pay attention to what our citizens need as well, and then make sure that we're balancing both of those needs so we can come up with the proper solutions.
So for me, I think budgets reflect priorities. And so I think for us, priorities would be gained by city staff and those who are working kind of detailed in the budget, but it would also be gained by going out to community and getting your input as far as what are those priorities that we need to be focusing on as a community, as a city. I also think in terms of investment, I believe that there are things that we invest in that have long-term benefit, that we have to be able to weigh that, right? So for an example, we invested in a lot of hotel space because we had a convention center that was underutilized. We said if we build more hotel space, folks will come. That's exactly what happened. That was a investment right now for a long-term benefit. I believe those are things that we have to look at really carefully. Is what are those investments we're making that have a long-term benefit that will continue to impact our community for the better. And so again, but we would figure that out by gaining our priorities through those who are working with the day-to-day and the city staff, but then also coming to you as community members to understand what you believe our priorities should be as a city.
When we talk about the priorities, I can only relate to myself. Like with business, we always do the budget, and we have priorities of what we want to give or what we want to get and buy and so forth. But with this, priorities with the city, and the city has done a wonderful job, we can say that we're going to do talent or whatever it is. And then something we find out that education is more important at that time. So we switch it. We don't just stay with the budget, just saying we're going to put it into talent or we're going to be putting it into whatever it is. We as the city or as the mayor or whoever, the city council, we have to see what the priority is. We budgeted for something, but we need it for a community, or we need it for the police, or we need it for something. So we have to be smart in that point to find out where our priority is and where we want to start and where we need to have that. It is our tax dollars, it is yours, we're working hard, but it's for our community. And my priority would be what we need at that moment. Not, yes, we have to figure for the future, but at that moment and what we need is my priority.
And we'll start at this end and move our way down again, so you can hang right on to that. Greater Mankato has been experiencing state-leading economic growth, job growth. But at the same time, the poverty level has grown as well. I'd like to know what role you think the city council may have in reversing that and what steps should be taken to make it happen.
I think with the city council, we have to look, we're talking about affordable housing and so forth, and the poverty level, the job force. We do have jobs here in Mankato, but do we need to train the people that need the training to help work? You know, we're talking about homeless. Where do they get their training from? How do we train them? We can't just say, okay, we have poverty, or they're there isn't. There are jobs here in Mankato. As you can drive up Madison Avenue, drive wherever you want. Personally, there shouldn't be, because where people are working. Does that one person come and say, oh, I need a job, but you're not experienced enough? We can't give you the job, or you're not educated enough? So we as people, or as humans, as I would say, I hire 14-year-olds. We have to help, we have to teach, we have to train, we have to have the heart to be able to do that. Affordable housing? Yes. What is affordable housing? To me, it depends on what your wage is. Poverty, what do we do with these? They're human beings, they need help. We as a community can help them. Mankato is rich. Mankato as a community, as a family, we have a heart of gold. We just have to figure out how we can train and how we can get help to the people that need help and the people that want help.
Yeah, I think it's really important that as a mayor, kind of the highest elected official in our community, that we would encourage our city to be better partners with our nonprofit community, right? So we have a vibrant nonprofit community that as we start to address issues such as poverty, we have expertise. We have expertise within that nonprofit community that could help guide us. And I believe as a mayor, that mayor should encourage our city to partner, to collaborate more closely with those who are on the ground every day working with those individuals, right? If it is our small businesses, and how can we train folks better? If it is our larger businesses, how can we create a funnel of well-trained folks there? Our nonprofits, a lot of our nonprofits are already doing that. But then there's also the wraparound that our nonprofits provide with affordable housing, that they provide with other services that help folks who are in poverty move forward. I think that would be the way that as a mayor and as a city, we can address both economic growth and then lean on and partner with our nonprofit community to make sure that we can address poverty, those things that are impacting many of our community members.
I agree with what Bukata is saying. Cross-sector collaboration in poverty alleviation is incredibly important. Right now, we have, last I heard, on average 60 families that are being turned away from shelters in the Mankato area. I'm aware that there's people sleeping in the Walmart parking lot. There are people that sleep under the bridges, and there are people that tent in the parks. I have a specific passion for hunger and homeless prevention, so I also know that with cross-sector collaboration, not only can you bring in the other nonprofits in the community, you can also bring in the churches. A lot of our churches are already hard at work setting up rotating shelters, so that way we can make sure that all people are taken care of on a weekly basis between a group of churches right now. We also have our workforce development focus in the Mankato community that comes from multiple other government sectors. DEED is helping with work placement. We have our workforce development center right downtown. Transition is really important. The types of jobs that we're bringing into the community help eliminate poverty as well. We have to make sure that people are given affordable wages and that they're given the benefits that they need. We need to make sure that they're given daycare, and daycare is accessible to them. We have to make sure that transportation is in place, so that way they can get to the jobs that are offered if it's after hours. So there are so many things that go into poverty alleviation in the community, and as the mayor, as the center, as Bukata was saying, as the position that can actually help cross collaboration, I think that it's really important to make sure that all of the different places that are working to eliminate homeless and eliminate poverty are together from the public, private, and nonprofit sector, so we can fill in those gaps and we can actually get to work and start working on the problem.
Well, if there was one simple solution to poverty, we would have eliminated it a long time ago. Poverty is actually a multifaceted problem. We have problems with workforce. Are the people trained and capable of doing the job? Can they get to their job? Which kind of segues into transportation. Can somebody get to their job on a reliable basis? I was talking to one of my friends who manages one of the restaurants, and they sit down in the interview with new employees and they ask them, do they have reliable transportation? Because if they don't have reliable transportation, hiring them becomes a problem. And he actually tries to work with them to try to get them a way to get to and from work in a reliable manner. Also, childcare. You can't take a job if you can't get childcare to watch your kid. And if you have to pay more in childcare than you're getting paid in wages, that pretty much ends that job right away. So we have a multifaceted one: childcare, housing. Mankato does have fairly high rents. Harvard's study in 2014 found that Mankato has the highest percentage of renters who are paying more than 1/3 of their income in housing. So we do have that. So it's a housing issue. Education: are people trained for the workforce? And how do we solve some of this? A lot of this is collaboration. As they've mentioned, we have a lot of groups, nonprofits, that actually work on this. If we work together as a city and try to bring them all together and work as a group, we might be able to solve this. And if we solve this, this actually promotes growth for everyone. It's not just growth for just the people in poverty, it helps everyone promote Mankato. So it's growth for all if we can help work on this poverty.
In the past years on the council, we've done 2 resolutions to support affordable housing with the state. The state gives grants on that. And so we're looking forward to having more affordable housing come in. On the transit side, we also know that we need to expand our transit service. We're looking at trying to expand that so there is service at night past 5 or 6 o'clock. And the transit service has undergone several changes. Almost every year we're making a change to the transit route to improve that for the people who need it. Additionally, Mankato's unemployment rate has been hovering in the 2% level for a couple of years now. So I think the job situation here is something where we want to try to maintain it in that level.
Yeah, I'd agree with Karen. We've got a lot of things going. We have, first off, we do have very active partnerships with a lot of the nonprofits, and we do help them out. It's helped a lot, but it's an ongoing problem that's been here since I remember. Poverty has always been around us, period. And we need to do as much as we can to help these people get their lives put together and get their families taken care of and make sure they're educated and a number of other things that need to happen. But the fact of the matter is, we do have the partnerships going with a lot of the nonprofits. We're working with them as hard as we can. We're doing the best we can on transit. We're redesigning routes nonstop so that we're picking up people where there's demand, okay, so that they can get, and now we're trying to expand it into evening routes. So we're doing a lot of what we can do. It's never going to be perfect, but we'll do what we can as much as possible.
I worked on the Emerging Workforce Coalition 2 years ago, where I lobbied for to get more resources for our youth that trains them. And what we found out was in the South Central Minnesota, 60% of people that live on the poverty line live below the poverty line. Hence, ask the question, what is causing it? What is the problem that they're below 60% of our poverty line? One is education. We have new immigrants coming into our communities who are ready to work but have a barrier of language. And hence, because of that barrier isn't being met, we're not having more people in the workforce to work to generate that, right? I personally think that not only working with nonprofits, but also working with businesses, small businesses, corporations, and factories in being able to bridge that, where we can get people of all backgrounds coming in and seeing where they need the help. Is it the transportation piece? Is it the language piece? Is it the homeless piece of it? I think education is one, working with nonprofits is two, but also investing in our youth that are coming up. If you don't give the youth an opportunity to work, how do we expect them to find a job that pays decently?
Awesome. Since this is my number one main issue. I'm not going to speak on it too much because I've already have. But yes, homelessness, we have a problem. I was able to partner with some of the nonprofit groups just to kind of say, hey, what do you guys need? What can I do currently employed at my places? What can we do for you? How can we get out there, get some boots on the ground? What do you need? What do you need in resources? Stuff like that. So, and I've been really partnering with a couple who gave me the resources. Hey, this is what we need. So, as council, I think we need to do a better job as an outreach to them, and as, hey, what do you need? What can we do to say, hey, everybody, these guys need these resources. Tweet it, Facebook it, and give them those resources. That way we all know what they need, and then we can help them. And then something that I also stated in the paper last week that, and it's nothing to do with this is why I'm running or anything like that, but my council salary, if I do win, will go to the homeless shelters, all of it, on a monthly rotation basis. And that's just to shed highlight to the problem. We have a problem, so we need to fix it, and I'm would love to be that leader and saying, okay, I'm going to take that first step, and what do you need? Here's the council salary. So
I think it is about collaborating with the existing programs that we have. We have a wonderful workforce development program. We have so many colleges and universities here that offer training, offer programming. I know Sherry Allen is very proud of the work that they're doing at community services with immigrants, people moving here from other places, and helping those people, again, to learn English or to learn skills that can be more valuable to employers within our community.
Well, I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room, and no one has a magical sentence to fix this problem. I think it's important that we have elected officials who are dedicated and to be relentless when it comes to this issue every day. I'm excited that we're building these new towers, we're moving ahead, and we've got this great economy, but it's important that we can't be leaving anybody behind. Right off the bat, I'd suggest treatment centers. What is the root of this poverty that people are in? I think we need more treatment centers. I think we need more homeless shelters. Do we have homeless shelters in this town? We do? Okay, well, we should get more of those.
Poverty to me, it's a systemic issue. It's not just a single issue. It is not just housing. It is not just education. Most of these people who are suffering poverty also come from a history of poverty. We need to make sure that we are reaching out to these people, that we're giving them the opportunities to be able to expand and grow their knowledge of skills, of languages, whatever they need. I think poverty, we can't just stop at giving them housing. I don't think just giving a person a housing is going to lift them out of poverty. I also think we need to look at a mental health perspective. I'm a mental health professional. I deal with it every day at my job. I think it's really overlooked, and I think it's highly stigmatized. So we need to make sure we decrease the stigmatization of poverty and mental health. So.
All right, thank you. Last question. We do have about 9 minutes left, so try and keep this one on time. But the city builds a lot of things. One of their key roles is maintaining our community's infrastructure and the amenities that we enjoy in the community. So my question is, what do you see as the most pressing needs for infrastructure or capital projects in the city? And that could be inclusive of roads, recreation amenities, trails, et cetera. What are the things that come to top of mind for you that the city ought to be investing in from the infrastructure perspective moving forward? And let's start with you, Karen. We'll go down into the council members, and then we'll finish with our mayoral candidates.
Well, infrastructures that I get really concerned about in the community are roads. And right now, I think we're doing a really good job with keeping roads up. The other thing is safety on roads. So that's looking at continuing to add roundabouts, and as much angst as those cause at various different businesses once they're done, people are really thrilled with them. So continuing to move those through the community as for infrastructure. We're continuing infrastructure-wise to reach out for the community to grow. We just extended sewer and water along Adams Street, and that opens up several hundred acres for not only industrial development, but residential development. So continuing to keep those things that cities do, which is streets, water, sewer. Those are really important. Those are basic backbones. Beyond that, it's our parks and it's our neighborhood parks. And we need to continue to look at what we can do to bring up the level of our neighborhood parks because 30% of our residents live in rental housing in our community, which means they don't have a lot of green space. So we really need to also be looking at our neighborhood parks. And that's probably one of my next focus for the next couple of years on the council.
I'd have to agree with Karen. Roads, I remember as a younger man when we would drive down Broad Street and you could basically get from one end to the other, but by the time you got from one end to the other, your tires were flat. Everything was, it was just nothing but potholes from one end to the other. We've solved a lot of that. That is an ongoing issue. It's always going to be an issue. Keeping the infrastructure current. Water infrastructure. You guys have all heard about the Michigan episode probably 2 or 3 years ago. Making sure that nothing like that ever happens in Mankato is huge. And that is something that we keep a really close eye on. We have very good people in that in the water department, and they do a very good job of keeping not only the drinking water, but also the wastewater taken care of. When I was first on the council, they used to tell us you could drink the stuff coming out of the wastewater plant. Well, I don't think I've ever tried it. Anybody in here who wants to, go ahead. But it's that's how clean we think that water is by the time it gets to the river. So those are probably the 2 high priorities. Parks, again, we've got an Indigenous People Day now that they're going to be celebrating at the Land of Memories Park. Sibley Park, I went there the other night. You couldn't even hardly walk in it. There's so many people using it. Rib Fest, I don't know how many people go to Rib Fest, but it was just a gas because it's so much fun. That is a park that we bought since I was on the city council. And it's just been an amazing investment in the city. Plus, when we get new subdivisions going in, the subdivisions have a kind of a criteria that they have to kind of keep a city park that in the area, or they have to pay out to the city so that we can put one in. So we've got them. They're being used, and I think we just keep that going.
I definitely agree with what Karen said, keeping the 3 infrastructures in place. But I also think that our city councils can look at better developers in our region. In order for our economy to keep growing, we need to draw more families that want to stay and live and use a lot of our roads and parks, especially diversifying. So personally, I think that the city not can only hire developers that are looking at more housing, but more work-friendly housing. Housings that are closer to our workers, that they can easily go to work, come home, live their families, utilize the park, utilize the Verizon Center, and many of the amenities that Mankato has to offer. The second thing I definitely think is when looking at a lot in the city of Mankato, I think that we should look at lots that encourages more families to want to move and live in our communities. So give lots to Section 42 or any of those developers coming in looking at that, purchasing homes where we can build homes that utilizes and grows more of our economy by maintaining our workforce, our talent, and also those college kids that are graduating, they can create their homes, get married, and live here.
I think this is a huge win for the city council. I think they've done an awesome job with this stuff. They've been able to keep track, keep everything updated. If something needs fixed, they fix it. So I honestly don't have any problems except for the water, but they're still keeping it up. So this is something that I think, yes, the council needs to get praised on this one because they've done an amazing job. And coming from a smaller community in Brownsdale where we can't afford our new piping and our sewage and our water and stuff like that. And once you start going down that rabbit hole of, okay, well, we can't afford it this year, we can't afford it this year, then it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And I just want to praise the council for keeping up to date and making sure that it's never a huge problem at the end. So.
Agreed. The things that I would like to focus on are more facilities for our children. Mankato hasn't made a huge investment like North Mankato has with their soccer fields, their baseball fields, the Fallenstein Park. We did Franklin Rogers, which is amazing. But what more can we do? I had brought up an idea that I saw in another city of could you transform a building like Sears or Herberger's into indoor turf, indoor courts, have tournaments all year round to bring more people to Mankato, They spend more money, increases the sales tax, and that's part of that sales tax. And I know that that's an idea that has been looked at and is moving forward. And one of the other things that really faces kind of more our part of town is Stoltzman, and that there's no path running along it. And when I was in high school and we had to run from Mankato West down Stoltzman and up Stadium Hill, it's a dangerous road. And now that I have children and I live on the Rasmussen side of Stoltzman, when it's bike to school day at Jefferson, I don't see a clear path for my child at 6 years old to cross over Stoltzman Road. People are driving fast. And that's something that I would like to see the county and city be able to work out, since it is a county road, and move that issue forward.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Stoltzman Road. That's something that's so obvious for all of us when we drive down that. If you're anything like me, when you drive around the city, you love it and you think it's aesthetically pleasing, but there's always something not right. One of the most profound things I took away from my studies here at MSU was the idea that the tragedy of the American cities is that they were built for the automobile and not for the human being, which goes back to more paths, more bike paths. For people living in neighborhoods, their only way to get, food or anything is to get in their car and drive up to the hill. I think we need to completely restructure and change our relationship with the built environment by fostering this kind of culture that we can all get behind, where things were like they were back in the old days, where specifically for Ward 5, that West Mankato neighborhood could just use the Park Lane area as its own kind of regional hub where they could all go walk to their local market, walk to their store, or whatever it may be. And it's going to take a lot for us to get there, but I think if you believe in it, that actually could come true someday. Going back to aesthetics, I think that's what's going to keep a lot of college kids in this town, is to drive down Riverfront and go, wow, this is a cool town. I think we need to build on top of our bleak strip malls. We need to build up instead of out. Urban sprawl is just outdated, and we need to grow as a community.
I agree with that. I think that we need to make sure that our current roads are kept up. I understand connecting the community and reaching out and connecting Victory and stuff. But living down where I live, right by CHS, I have semis coming by my road. It is filled with potholes. It is terrible to drive on. I probably need new shocks. So I think we need to make sure we're focusing on making sure that our roads that we already have built in town are up to date, are drivable, are not filled with potholes. The semis that drive down that, I'm sure that they have troubles because of all the potholes. So we need to make sure that not just one section of the city is looked at, that make sure all of our wards are looked at. Because I feel like a lot of the time Ward 5 doesn't really get that renovation that we need. So.
All right. Good news is I was a college professor. Bad news is my microphone went to the end. Hey, I got my microphone back. All right. I already beat to death the water issue. Water is probably our most pressing matter for infrastructure. But the other thing that comes into play is that we are actually a regional oasis of economic activity. So lots of people come in here. So one of our issues on transportation is being able to make the highways so people can get to Mankato. Yes, I know that means road construction. Nobody likes road construction, but we have to. And some of the things that have actually happened that are pretty good is the sales tax has been changed over the last few years, that we can now use that money regionally instead of within a mile of the Civic Center. So, for example, out on the 169-14 interchange, they're dropping $985,000 to actually bring the levy up so that we can meet federal requirements. So as we're looking at this, we have to maintain the levy system and transportation. We're doing those both at once on this one. And actually, that was only a small part of it. Most of the money is coming from the state and from North Mankato for this. But it's most. Actually, I believe the state is providing a few million. So, so this comes into the 169 and 14 interchange because we want to actually make intercity transportation so we can bring more people to Mankato. That's the second part of infrastructure after the water treatment.
Thank you, Toby. I would say that revitalization with limited gentrification in properties is a good opportunity for Mankato. Right now, we have a lot of activity in Old Town. They are doing a phenomenal job. And they're doing that with the support of the city. If you look at the food trucks that were brought in down at the hub, that's an amazing project. Look at the revitalization of a lot of those old buildings that were used for manufacturing downtown, a lot of those historic buildings. So I think it's really important that we continue to focus on revitalizing the properties that we currently already have in place, and also make sure that we are revitalizing brown spaces. I think the community development area of the city just got a $300,000 grant for revitalization of brown space, which is phenomenal. That means the sky's kind of the limit there on what we can do going forward. And also there's a project that took place, I think was it 2010, Ornez Plaza, which was a green space redevelopment. So they took a senior living facility that had been kind of run down, and they turned that into a more energy-friendly space. So being able to focus on that benefits the entire city, it benefits all of our citizens, and it benefits the people that are utilizing those properties. And I think that it's really important that we continue to do that as we move forward and avoid sprawl.
All right, for me, the pressing need would be, in the context is we're growing, we're growing, and in that growing, we're growing younger, and within that, we're growing more diverse. And so the idea is, how do we invest in those things for our youth, our families, those spaces? We have the YMCA, we have a boys and girls club coming online, but we need many more facilities to be able, for our young folks, and then those families to be able to gather and connect. And then at the same time that we're growing younger and more diverse, we're also growing older. And so I believe the investment in places like Vine and other places for our active older adults to gather, in a sense, and as well, be in the same vicinity as that growing younger and growing more diverse is important. So I believe the investment in our youth and facilities and spaces for our youth to be, as well as to honor those who have built this community, our active older adults, spaces for them to continue to be actively involved in our community.
Thank you. And I agree with Jess. My main thing is the young adults, the children, the facilities. When I drive by Kennedy School and I see the soccer field and I see all the young children and the families, that to me is very, very important, because we have to start with our young adults, our young children, keeping them safe, keeping them busy. So to me, when you talk about the Sears or doing something indoors, it starts with our young. And Bukata, you are right. We need to honor our older generation, because that's where we're heading. And so both ways. But I didn't mean you, Bukata. I meant me. We had to end it like this, didn't we? But it is. To me, it's starting with our young generation. I might be a little bit prejudiced because of my little grandson. But sports facility is very, very important. The more we keep our young busy and doing things, they have nothing to do but to grow up strong and healthy and safe.
You can keep that. Well, thank you for a lot of thoughtful insights on some of the biggest issues that have been pressing in the city of Mankato in the last few months and years. And also thank you to a great crowd. Was there like 200 people in here today? It's a lot more than we expected to come. So congratulations to you guys, too, for showing up and being interested.